All right, it is 4 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. So if everyone can just go ahead and introduce themselves, who you are and what productions you were involved in this year. I will go ahead and introduce Roger and myself. I'm Abigail Marcus. I'm a junior studying statistics and performing arts, and I was involved in On the Horizon as a producing facilitator.
My name is Roger Rivera. I'm a senior as an advertising major with minors in performing arts and English. And I worked with both the theater ambassadors as well as Sometimes the Rain, Sometimes the Sea in the fall semester. Lena, would you like to take us on?
Hi, I'm Lena Menifee-Cook, and I'm a senior in performing arts, art and design, and international studies. And this year I worked on Of the Deep as an assistant facilitator and performer, and On the Horizon as a performer, as well as Sometimes the Rain, Sometimes the Sea.
Samuel.
Hello, my name is Samuel. I am a sophomore in performing arts. The shows that I participated in as a performer are Perform the Protest. I participated in the design team for Sometimes the Rain, Sometimes the Sea. I participated as a performer in Our Community Carol and On the Horizon, as well as the 10 minutes for the directing class.
Tiffany.
Hi, I'm Tiffany. I participated as the assistant director for Our Community Carol, and I was a composer, a puppeteer, and a performer for On the Horizon, and I was the assistant stage manager for Facing Our Truth.
Hope.
Hi, my name is Hope Metz. I am a junior vocal performance major, and this year I participated in the Opera Studios, a production of Dido and Aeneas by Henry Purcell as Belinda, and I also participated in our opera scenes program.
Ashley.
Hi, my name is Ashley Oxnard. I'm a senior in performing arts. I helped co-write the Our Community Carol, and then for On the Horizon, I was the assistant manager, director, playwright, and performer.
And Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Ward. I'm a senior in performing arts with an emphasis in musical theater. This year, I was a director, playwright, accompanist, composer, and video editor for my show Legacy in On the Horizon. And then I was the sound designer for Facing Our Truth.
All right, thank you. And if each of you guys could just tell us one way that you felt you innovated in your project that you were involved in. If you want to talk about multiple projects, go ahead. All right, and Lena, if you want to get us started off.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, there were a lot of ways that there were innovation involved in the projects I worked on. In Of the Deep, we were taking a show that was originally supposed to be a full-scale in-person puppetry production and translating that into a much smaller scale, shorter shadow puppetry film. So that was a big shift and involved a lot of technological and structural innovations in making that transition, which was very exciting. As well as when we worked on our play here today for On the Horizon, we had the opportunity to work with a local playwright who's on the theater faculty to adapt a story that originally was meant to be performed live to something that would fit a little better for the world of Zoom and for the circumstances that everyone is experiencing right now.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing your experiences. And Sam?
Yeah, there were all sorts of ways that innovation was a part of each project because of the difficulty of the school year and the pandemic. Everything was extremely limited. So the most interesting ones were probably Perform the Protests and On the Horizon for me, because Perform the Protests was all about me, my voice, and what I wanted to fight for. I can't speak for many performing arts majors, but I don't really have a personality, so it's hard to not perform with someone else's words in mind. But it was an amazing project. Tiffany Johnson was amazing, and I felt like what I had to say really mattered in that instance. And On the Horizon was just really interesting because it was a mix of being on stage but no audience, and there were virtual productions, but it was an amazing experience because every student got to participate, and it was almost like we were all professionals creating professional theater.
Certainly, we definitely learned the power of our voice this past year. All right, Tiffany.
I think my biggest innovation would have been on our community carol, because that one, it was supposed to be a live production and it was supposed to be about Ames, but instead it was still about Ames, but we filmed it, and that was our first filmed production. And the whole process was really interesting, and the whole time we were doing it, it was so much fun, and we learned so many new things about the film industry and about how we can film theater for the future.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, Hope.
I think one of the biggest innovations we had in Opera Studio this year was for our production of Dido and Aeneas. Instead of just performing an opera in front of people, we actually recorded the whole thing. We learned all of the music, and then we recorded it with the orchestra. We learned how to lip sync, and then we filmed everything while lip syncing and keeping a 6-foot distance. And normally opera is something that we perform just live, and doing like a multi-step process was really interesting.
Wow, that sounds very different for all of you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Ashley.
So I guess for me, On the Horizon was to me was innovative because we both had, we had the virtual shows going on at the same time we were having the live shows, and it seemed to me from when I was talking to my family, they never knew which shows were live, which ones weren't. So I thought that was really cool, and I feel like On the Horizon was innovative because we got to experience as a student production.
Absolutely. It's nice being able to do that as a student, for sure. All right, Rachel.
Yeah, I'll bounce off of what Ashley was saying. Being able to write a musical and then have the ability to edit it, it makes you just want to make it perfect. And so when you're trying to innovate and change things, you got to just take what it is. Sometimes we're in such a weird time right now. And so to just love the fact that it's live theater, but it's also not live theater, and to make sure that things can mesh that way too. Yeah, it's a crazy time, but it's super fun to work in, for sure.
Through these innovations, there come obstacles along the way. Can you guys explain to us a little bit of the tactics or strategies you guys use to overcome some of these obstacles for your productions? Lena, would you like to start us off again?
Yeah, sure. So for Of the Deep, like I mentioned, we were transitioning into from a show that had already been planned and started in rehearsals to an entirely different format. And because obviously people couldn't be closer than 6 feet, there were a lot of people who weren't able to even be in spaces with each other, period, for health concerns. So we had to make a very different kind of structure to enable the most people to participate as possible. So that was definitely a big challenge, and sort of threw a wrench in some of what the original goals for the play was, or how we had intended to present it. But it meant that we got a lot more voices in the room and collaboration, and we wound up creating small teams to make each of the individual films that then added to the collective message and story. So those were based on who lived together or who was in like a quarantining pod together. Yeah, so it allowed for a lot of additional opportunities and more voices adding to the script and to the storylines. So yeah, that was an obstacle, but also a fun challenge.
Excellent. Samuel?
Yeah, it was interesting because Perform the Protest was one of the first shows we had to do besides Of the Deep, that was live but with limited audience. So we had to do it outside. And I've never really done an outside performance, especially right underneath the clock tower, which would interrupt the speakers every hour with the bells. So that was fun. But it really just taught me that no matter where you are, your words do matter and a performance can be held. And another issue that we had was that On the Horizon was my first like performance on stage, live streamed, but I was in a rather funny 10-minute. But the problem is with no audience, there's no one laughing at the jokes. So I was just kind of there saying a joke, and then there was silence. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll go on to my next line because I think that's the right thing to do. But what was actually super helpful is that the directors and the playwrights were allowed to view the rehearsals and they would laugh during my jokes. So I'm like, oh, okay, I have a good idea of when a good place to pause is now. So
That's an awesome way of changing your mindset for future productions. I think that's something to commend you for. Tiffany, would you like to continue the conversation?
Sure. During On the Horizon, I was in 2 different productions. So trying to figure out how that worked was kind of a challenge. And the one where I had to compose music for, it was very time constraining, but it was great because we had a same vision and we were able to create a beautiful piece. And even with the other one, it was still a little stressful, but every show is stressful. And even though there wasn't a lot of communication going on in some cases, it still turned out beautiful.
That's awesome to hear. Hope?
I guess one of the biggest challenges we did have as opera studio for Dido and Aeneas was the fact that we are not able to sing with each other all on stage. So we did do the whole lip syncing thing, and it was very interesting because, you know, we did learn the music and then we recorded all of the music with masks on. So, you know, learning how to sing opera in a mask is it's very interesting. You know, that it'll fall down this way or go up into your mouth. I've seen that happen with people before. And just like learning how to navigate singing with a mask on. I am very happy in the end, though, that we decided to record the actual production and lip sync so we could still see all of the emotion on our faces, but also being able to get over being able to overcome staging when you're 6 feet apart. You know, how do you really get that connection with your scene partner, with other people in the cast without touching them? So learning how to overcome that and really show your emotion that way was, that was very difficult, but very rewarding.
It's definitely a great example of the ever-changing world of theater and music. I think that's perfect. Ashley?
So for On the Horizon, it was my first time directing a piece I made. And so the piece I made was a story that happened to me. So it's like, how can I do this without like telling my actors that was based off of me? As well as because we were rehearsing in January, we had like a lot of like weather canceling things that happened. But due to Zoom and WebEx, we were able to rehearse online. And so I think that we were able to overcome that because the week I was supposed to film, that's when we weren't allowed to have any rehearsal because we had that polar vortex. And so I was like freaking out a little bit. I'm like, wait, why am I freaking out? I can just do it on Zoom, you know? So I'm just glad we were able to do that, but it was good.
I'd say Zoom has its perks, and it definitely showed throughout this time period. Rachel?
Yeah, I was away and I had written Legacy while I was at the National Institution of the Eugene O'Neill Center in Connecticut. And so that was last semester in the fall. And so bringing it to Iowa State was a whole different kind of challenge to go around. But the question that I had, since the show was a one-woman show before, was what am I allowed to do? am I allowed to bring in more people? Or is it a like no-go, or how close can they be? And what are all the rules with that? So when going into the project, there was a lot of pandemic oriented questions that I had. And I'm so fortunate to have had such a, big cast for right now of, 3 and 2, so 5, sorry, but 5 people, and to be able to be a part of that. Having that live theater kind of sense to it was amazing to see during this time. So yeah.
Fantastic. So innovation is beyond virtual and not virtual, like we just discussed. What other forms of innovation with regards to equity, diversity, and inclusion have you seen been implemented through this past year or so? Lena, if you want to start us off.
Yeah, I think there have been a lot. The limitations have provided a lot of creative and accessibility opportunities. I think some of the more collaborative, student-oriented productions have allowed for a lot more engagement and creative input, of course, but also students who might normally work a lot of hours at a job or have a lot of other additional extracurricular activities could sort of shape their own schedules and make sure that they were part of it and could share their voices, but also had time to do their other obligations instead of being constrained to a more traditional 5 nights a week schedule. So I think that was definitely one, as well as all of the shows were pay what you will. So we were able to reach, I think, a broader audience and people who maybe want to attend theater and be part of theater, but may not always have the funds to do so. So yeah, those are 2 of the things.
Absolutely. That is a great point to bring up. When people hear about a show, they don't necessarily want to sign their entire life away for a couple months. And it's definitely a lot easier right now to sign up for a production and know what you're going to get yourself into. All right, Samuel.
Yeah, I would think you can look at any production this semester and really see the innovation and diversity in the casting, in the crew, because almost every show involves such a diverse group of people of all different backgrounds, and no show limited who could do what. There was no real typecasting, in all honesty. And shows like Perform the Protest, people could literally sign up and then perform whatever they wanted. So there was things like poetry, there was singing, there was Spanish, people speaking different languages. It was an amazing production. And On the Horizon was the same, where any student can participate. So you can really see just this long list of who participated in On the Horizon. It was just all diverse. It was amazing.
Absolutely. I think, like you said, every production did a really nice job of getting a lot of people involved in many different ways. All right, Tiffany.
Another thing that happened is Tiffany Johnson is a really amazing director, and she lets you do you, I guess. And for Facing Our Truth, it was really cool how she let there be monologues in between each of the 10 minutes. And those monologues were written and performed by the people, and they were saying what they wanted to, and having their voices be heard is so important. And I think that's a really cool thing.
It's a great form of innovation, but also making sure people can share their stories. Absolutely. All right. Hope?
One thing we as an entire music program have been doing over the past couple of years to promote diversity is programming music, whether it be, for choir, for orchestra, for opera, that is written by diverse composers, women composers, composers of color. An example of this you can see in our last opera scenes program. We had a scene from a woman composer and from a Black composer, and it was just such beautiful music. And we had to talk about it, how, even though most of the composers that we perform are usually European white men, like there's so much other music out there that we really need to, expose other people to. And another thing we did for Opera Studio and also theater is we brought in world-renowned bass Morris Robinson earlier this semester, and he did a talk that I absolutely loved about BLM and opera in the time of BLM. And he had so much insight about how what we can do as just small, artists who, don't have too much sway in the opera world, what we can do to promote equality in the world of opera.
Absolutely. It's amazing how much work is out there that isn't being done. So thank you for bringing light to that and sharing that. All right, Ashley.
So when I watched the Archimedes Carol for the first time last December, I noticed that they did closed captions. And I think that's really important, especially for virtual productions for people who are in the deaf community. So that way they can still be a part of watching productions. So.
Yeah, it's making sure you're taking into account all your viewers. That is a really great thing to share. All right, Rachel, you want to finish it up?
Yeah, I also know that we're doing captions for Songs for a New World as well. So that's another way that we're continuing the process and following through with that. And I'll also kind of just bounce off of what everybody else has said, but we're giving a platform for people to say something. And though right now we're going through a really tricky time, a lot of people are feeling a lot of things. And so giving that space for people to say those things is so important. And I hope that Iowa State keeps on doing that, but it's been lovely to have that for this season.
Thank you. As you all know, this year has been a pretty hectic one, and through that we've been able to learn through many different opportunities. So we ask, what is your pandemic wisdom and what will you take into the future, whether it be in an artistic sense or in personal level? If you would like to start us off, Samuel.
Yeah, I would say if the pandemic taught me anything, it's that I need to understand your schedule, and you also have to understand yourself. Because I started signing up for things, but I also had classes, and virtual stuff made it a little easier to juggle because I didn't have so many destinations to travel to. But at the same time, it's a lot of work, even if it is virtual, getting to Zoom meetings, getting homework done that needs to be submitted. So really it's just understanding that you need to balance your schedule, but you also need to balance yourself. And every director, every teacher, every professor, every student has been telling their students that they need to take time for themselves and that not to stress, don't overexert yourself, understand that you are human and that you need a break. So I think what is going to come with me to the future is that, yes, I can challenge myself to do more in all sorts of ways, but at the same time, I learned to take a step back and focus on myself.
I love that, the idea of challenging oneself, but also recognizing that we are humans and we need to take those moments for ourselves. Yes. Tiffany?
I think my pandemic wisdom is, even though people are telling you to take time for yourself, actually listen to them, because you get it all the time. Like, just take a moment for yourself. And sometimes we just don't because we don't think we need to, but you actually do. Like, your brain can't handle everything. So just take a minute and take a breather, and it's okay to just sit and do nothing for a while. I think a lot of performing artists tend to keep going and going and going, and we keep piling on things for us to do. And we just need to stop and take a minute. Like, it's okay if you don't do every single production or every project. Just take a minute for yourself and actually listen to people.
It's very interesting because I do think it's something that we all love. Like, theater and music is something we all love to do. And we're going to try to find those opportunities to do those things. But like you said, and like how Samuel said, like, there are those moments that we do need to just relax. And in those same moments that we relax, we provide more opportunities for other people that maybe they relaxed in the last one. Hope.
I guess I would say one of the things I learned throughout this pandemic is that even though there may be some disappointing shortcomings when it comes to performing and all of the projects that we're working on, that no matter what, you can always focus on yourself and personal growth. There may be other things going on. You can't perform live with the rest of your cast. You can't have in-person voice lessons, for example, for all the music people out there, but you can spend some time in the practice room and really work on whatever you need to work on for yourself. And yeah, so the only thing you can really control in life is yourself. And that's one thing that I've really gotten to learn over this whole thing. So
There's definitely been personal growth, I believe, for all of us throughout this time. And in the same sense, there is that growth of theater and music, that we're learning new ways to present our art to people. And I think that itself is a step in that positive direction. Ashley?
So my wisdom would be, even in these like uncertain times, take risks, take new risks, try new things. On the horizon, I wasn't even gonna, originally I was not gonna submit anything because like I probably won't get picked. And so I was like, you know what, I'll just submit separate ways, see what happens. And then I got another email saying I was asked to be an assistant manager, which is something I've never done before. And then when me and my facilitator, Sarah, we're going through the questions, she's like, do you want to direct? I was like, I hadn't taken the directing class, but I'll give it a shot. And so after all these risks, it turned out really good. I enjoyed being on the horizon. So that's my takeaway for the future, is take risks and try new things.
There's definitely a reason why it's high risk, high reward, because these opportunities are very rewarding. Rachel?
Yeah, I'd say don't be afraid to fail. There's a big thing with no. It's okay. Like, it's okay to say yes to things. And the only no that really matters is your own, because you're the only one that's going to stop yourself from doing something. So if you want to go learn guitar or learn piano or learn how to play the oboe or whatever, you are like the only person that, if you say no, that's where it matters. So I learned how to say yes to myself and how to open those opportunities for myself, because if you don't, nobody else is going to open that door for you as quickly as you will for yourself.
Absolutely. When we open those doors and we say yes to ourselves, that's when we get that personal growth that Hope mentioned earlier. It's when those are the opportunities that we seek for. Lena, we are discussing the pandemic wisdom and what we hope to take in the future from this hectic time. Would you like to answer that for us?
Yeah, sure. Sorry about the glitch. Someone might have already said this, but I think I've definitely just taken away that limitations can be an opportunity for creativity and an opportunity for additional collaboration and more voices to be heard and more lovely things to come out of it. So limitations can be useful.
Yes, I think it's really fascinating how much you guys are talking about how we've really realized what we can do even when there are limitations. So in addition to that, where do you see the future of theater? Do you think virtual theater is going to stay, or do you think we're going to slowly transition, or is it going to be a mix? All right, Lena, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I think there will definitely be a mix. I think people miss live theater, so obviously that's going to come back, but I think we've learned a lot over the course of this time period. And definitely, I think like streaming live events will continue to make sure that as many people can see the work as possible, as well as sort of all the technological advancements and exciting things we've learned about technology. I think there'll be a lot more like multimedia use within live theater, which will be exciting.
I absolutely agree with the technology component. We saw like an exponential use of technology this year, which is great hands-on experience for the students. All right, Samuel.
Yeah, I agree. I would hope it would be a mix so that we don't abandon one or the other, because theater is all about the live audience, the live aspect, the in the moment sort of dialogue on stage. But at the same time, this whole pandemic really taught us that theater can be in several different places. It could be on a Zoom call, it could be through a live recording of a stage with no audience. but I just really miss that aspect of the personal interaction with the audience and the stage. So I hope that live performance can come back as soon as possible, but at the same time, we don't forget the virtual aspect and all the different qualities that it possesses.
Absolutely. I agree with the in person, but we've definitely learned the potential with virtual settings. All right, Tiffany.
I think that there's going to be a mix for sure. I don't think people want to clearly abandon this. I'm not a big fan of Zoom, but other people are. I'm really curious to see if more playwrights are going to be writing virtual theater and to see how that works for that. So that's what's exciting to me. But also going back to live theater, I can't wait.
Absolutely. We've been having to do some adapting with some plays to make them virtual, but it does raise the question of what will come of this pandemic. So, all right, Hope.
I too am on team mix. I think that both sides of people miss live theater, people miss live opera so much, but I think that all of the technology that we have been incorporating into things over the past year is really going to uplift and make opera and theater more accessible to people. Someone who may not have thought about going to an opera may see something online about like, oh, we're doing a live stream, or oh, we've recorded this and watch it, because you don't have to actually show up. And I think that technology is going to have a spot in theater for a long time now. So
Absolutely. I agree. All right, Ashley.
Yeah, I am definitely hoping for a mix of both virtual and in-person theater, because I've already been seeing a lot of plays that are doing over Zoom, and it's very interactive. There was just one, and it was like all about like a court case, and the audience got to be the jury. And so each production was like it changed differently each production. So it was really interesting how people are starting to be innovative with how they're writing their plays.
That's really fascinating. I mean, you hear about those like who done it, I'll be a part of it, but I feel like a virtual setting that just becomes a lot easier and definitely more enjoyable, engaging. So thank you for sharing. All right, Rachel.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a mix. I think though with this, there's going to be a new form of like in-person theater, because everything's been just so accessible to everyone. And so with that, when you're coming back to having both, there's going to be a new breakthrough of letting people who haven't been able to step into a theater. I was talking to Amanda Pettifish-Strog, one of our professors, and we were talking in length about how new people who had never felt comfortable walking in to a theater before, because of the like standard of what an audience is, has now watched theater at home. And so hopefully, with the comfortability like levels of how health like regulations are going throughout the time now, and since the vaccine has come out, that there'll be more people coming to the theater, and hopefully that grows over time, because now people who haven't been able to watch have watched at home, and they're like, oh, maybe this will be fun going to the theater. So I'm really excited to have a mix of both, and hopefully that comes sooner rather than later.
Awesome. Hope, this question is specifically toward you because you are a music theater amongst theater students here. Can you give us, you explained a little bit of the process of the creation of Dido and Aeneas earlier, but can you give us a little bit more insight on how that happened and how that changes the landscape for virtual opera?
It was a very interesting process, and we all learned a lot, but I guess I can describe some of what we did. So, first thing that you think of, when it comes to opera is casting auditions. We did all of that online instead of just showing up and singing an art song or an aria. We did that online, and then we were told that we are going to do the whole lip syncing thing, and it was really interesting because we did learn all of the music together in the choir room, spaced out and masked. And after we were done learning that, we got to go through the process of recording, which is something I had never done before. And we tried to get things done in as little takes as possible, of course, but getting everybody into that room and recording the music, and then after that learning how to lip sync as well was very interesting. It's something I never thought I would need to do in opera, although there have been a lot more opera movies coming out. Morris Robinson is in one. I mean, they just finished filming, I believe, right now for Die Zauberflöte, which should be really cool, and he lip synced for that, I'm sure. And I feel like that will be a useful thing to know from now on, especially if virtual opera and virtual theater, musical theater becomes a lot more of a thing. And I guess as far as like changing the landscape of virtual opera, most of the virtual operas I have seen or anything online has been just recordings of productions that were just done normally. So I think, introducing that whole new process was very innovative and something we can always have and know how to do now, especially if something like this were ever to happen again, or we aren't able to meet and record everything together and perform.
Fantastic. Okay, this actually segues into the next question perfectly. Like Hope discussed with the lip syncing being a thing that she's never really done, or the opera studio had mostly not really done before. What are some new experiences that you have gotten to do during this time that you don't think you would have done prior? So you want to get us started off, Lena?
Yeah, I think one of the most exciting things I got to experience that I normally wouldn't was actually working on Sometimes the Rain, Sometimes the Sea, which was a super quick process. And we worked with a director from New York City, Arpita Mukherjee. And we also, throughout that process, as performers, got to see a lot of what was happening with the technology innovation. They did a lot of very creative Zoom work and creating backgrounds and all sorts of transitions and really exciting things. And because we were performers and we were all on the Zoom call, we were getting to see the behind the scenes of that process, which normally we would all be on stage as actors and they're all figuring out the stuff somewhere else. So that was a really exciting experience that, was very new for me and a super great thing to learn.
All right. Yes. Thank you for sharing. All right, Samuel.
Yeah, I think all the shows I experienced this year just had all sorts of different things that I'd never done before. Like Perform the Protest involved my words and something that I had to both write and perform. And it was just this really interesting way because I've never really written anything or at least performed anything that I've written, but that actually inspired me to want to do that more. And I've never really been in many virtual productions, and Our Community Carol was arguably a film, so I've never done a film before, and that was a really good experience because we would just do scenes over and over again. But unlike the stage, if you mess something up, you just reshoot it and take the better take. So that was really interesting. As well as On the Horizon and things like Sometimes the Rain, Sometimes the Sea, they had a lot more design choices in them. And for Sometimes the Rain, I was actually on the design team rather than acting. And that was my first time helping design anything. And all the technology went over my head. So I picked costumes. And I realized that I had set up this idea for costumes. And then we were like, okay, let's build on this. And then we were like, oh, the show's next week. So I'm just going to start picking stuff out. And I hope everyone likes it. And they did. So that was fun.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of stepping into shoes you hadn't really stepped into before. So congrats to you on that. That's really impressive. All right, Tiffany.
I've never been an assistant stage manager before or a stage manager. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't want to do it. But I wanted to work with Tiffany Johnson because she's really cool. So I said, why not? And it was a really big challenge. And I actually enjoy challenges. So it was nice to be able to try something different. And now I know whether or not I want to do it again. And there's always a maybe. So it was fun to try something new and kind of dip my toe into it.
Absolutely. That is something sometimes we step into shoes and we're like, I'm not sure if I'm going to like this or not. And whether you do or whether you don't, then you have that experience and you know about it going forward. So yeah, thank you for sharing on that. All right, Hope.
Well, I did mention the whole lip syncing and recording thing earlier, and I have also mentioned, learning to be able to make that connection with your fellow castmates on stage when your staging has to be 6 feet apart. I feel like that's really gotten me. I mean, like, nobody's perfect, but I have really learned a bunch about just acting in general and how to really show that without using the power of like touch or being close to someone to really show those emotions in a different way.
Absolutely. Sometimes we forget that proximity actually makes a huge difference, but you got to do what you got to do. And I mean, I saw it and it's a beautiful performance the way it is. So it was very effective. Ashley?
So, kind of like what Tiffany said, it was my first time being assistant stage manager, and I was already like on the fence if I want to be a stage manager or not. And so I fell in love with it because I got to sit in on so many production meetings and so many rehearsals, as well as like get to know so many people that I didn't know were in the departments because I'm fairly new to our theater department. So it was really cool to have that experience and finding out this is the path I want to take.
Absolutely. That is a huge step to take. So congratulations on that. Also, just stepping into new shoes and being in production meetings, that's a very fun and educational experience. So I'm glad you got to have that. Rachel?
Yeah, I'll say I kind of dove straight into more of the design elements. And so I was able to sound design, and then I light and designed a couple things this past semester. But we got mics, which is huge. I know that masks can be really hard, but we had just the amazing funds to be able to get mics, and that helped On the Horizon heavily and Facing Our Truth. So being able to bring that technology in has just been amazing. And then I also have been able to learn a lot of Adobe software, which is huge. And I don't think I would have ever even tried to scale those had the pandemic not happened. And film kind of took precedence within this time with filming shows and being able to do some of that stuff. So I'm very grateful I learned that because it's pretty useful if you guys want to you still have time. So go and do that too, because it's really, really nice to know some of those softwares.
Before we answer the next question, I want to remind anybody who may be watching, or if you guys want to just a refresher, the mission statement of the Department of Music and Theater is to empower citizen artistry by engaging students and the community in transformative theater and performing arts experiences which examine the human condition, encourage lifelong learning, teach artistic skills, prepare professionals, inspire empathy, explore creativity, build relationships, and embrace diversity. Through your experiences you guys have all experienced in the last year, have you learned anything new about being a citizen artist? Would you like to begin, Lena?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have already mentioned this, but I think this year has been really important as our growth as citizen artists in terms of learning and discovering our own voices and how we can not only just interpret the words and creations and stories of other people, but share ours as well and develop our sense of our personal storytelling and our storytelling for how we start to make changes and things like that. And just a confirmation again that the more stories that we hear, the more people that are involved, the more experiences and ideas always make stories and theater and any kind of art so much richer. And so I think this entire year has been such a great learning experience and opportunity to really grow as citizen artists here.
This time has definitely been a perfect time for self-reflection, both as individuals and as a community we are in the theater department, the music and theater department. Samuel?
Yeah, I think that as a citizen artist, I was very much challenged because of the nature of every performance and also the nature of society as it is changing throughout. Obviously, we had so many different protests, and we even had our own protest on campus through Perform the Protest. And I think that I agree with Lena that I learned that we have a voice and our words have power and impact in the community, but as well as I learned so much more about myself and that I can admit to myself that I do have talent, that I do have power, and I do have gifts. And as Tiffany Johnson says, our gifts will make room for us. So I don't have to worry about finding my community or worry about any backlash because my gifts will make room for what I have to say.
That's beautiful. Tiffany?
I have learned that I can do so much more than I thought I could. I can be a composer, I can be a stage manager, I can do anything, and that's really empowering to know that my I don't have any limitations, and it's nice to be able to explore those things in this last year. Even though there have been some challenges, it's still allowed me to do whatever I want, and that's really cool.
Who we are as individuals has definitely developed through experience over the last year. So that's a great point. Hope?
I guess I could say what I've learned is that over this past year is that people need art, theater, music now more than ever. And that even though making everything virtual and having to learn all of this new technology and all that is difficult and creates a lot more steps and can be a lot more time consuming, it is necessary and a great thing to do for people to still provide them with art throughout this very trying and emotional time for people.
Definitely.
It's worth it.
We may not be considered essential workers, but we're essential artists for the community. Ashley?
I guess for me, to be a citizen artist, I was thinking about this last night because I wasn't sure I was going to answer this just yet. But I was like thinking, since I do want to be eventually a playwright, I want my pieces when they get performed, I want the audience to take those and use it as a tool that they can use in the future. So I think that's what would make me a better citizen artist is if I'm able to do that for a community.
I definitely agree. Offering that grace and your gifts towards the community is something that hopefully expands it, both as a community, but as well as making them artists along the way. Rachel?
Yeah, I think I've learned that it's totally needed to check in with friends and family and say, hey, this is where we're at right now. And this is part one of whatever comes next. So enjoying that this is we're cusping the end to a new beginning and to enjoy that as well.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for sharing all of that. And we do have one more question, and it's really just highlighting a moment from this past year that's just, it's fun. It's one of your favorites. You think about it, it makes you smile. So I'll actually go ahead and get us started. So this past week, the student reps and the student ambassadors, I am a student rep, we planned a kickball event, an ice cream event, and we did it after our perf class on Thursday. And it was a moment where we just got to get together, socialize, have fun, and really reconnect in that community. I didn't realize how much I needed it until it was there. And so, yeah, while it wasn't working on a production, it was just, I needed that sense of community, and it was really nice to have like fun. So it was just really great. Roger?
I think the number one thing for me was because I'm not in the Performing Arts 105 seminar class, I think it was the first time I got to see my fellow peers, whether even if it was just over a screen, the opportunity to see them all do something they love so much and just to have it back. It may not be in full circle, but it was something along the way, and I think that's something that's gonna help us propel forward for the future. Lena?
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite memories was working on the student produced production and just getting to be in these small scale rehearsals with Roger and several other members of the theater department, and just really getting to explore new ideas and spend time with friends. So yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, Samuel.
I think my favorite moment has to be all the bread fights and On the Horizon, because Sam Rude designated a fight in his script, but instead of like swords or knives or sticks, it was bread, and bread isn't sturdy. And as soon as we made first contact, it would always like pull apart and just fall everywhere. And me and Jacob were like, we're gonna send this bread on the last show. And on the first hit, my bread just flew into the audience. And I was so happy that that happened. I was like, yes, this is what this was for.
Out of curiosity, how many pieces of bread do you think you went through?
Oh, at least a dozen, maybe like 20, because we also practiced the fights. So there was breadcrumbs on Fisher stage all the time, and it was incredible.
Wow, I bet props crew was on top of that. All right, Tiffany.
I think my favorite would have to be also during On the Horizon. Sitting downstairs in the dressing room with everybody was just really nice. And we had so much fun doing these weird random interviews. And I think that was like super cool. And it was so much fun.
Yes, that sounds like a lot of fun. It's nice being downstairs in the dressing rooms. The hearing you say that, I'm just like, that feels like a foreign concept. But really, you were doing that just this semester. So that's good to hear. And Hope.
I would have to say one of my very favorite moments from this past year actually happened last week when the Opera Studio performed our Opera Scenes concert, and the lovely cast of Songs for a New World showed up and became our audience. It was such a gift to have that little slice of normal again and perform in front of an audience. So thank you to everyone, to Brad, Val, Patrick, everyone who showed up. It was so lovely, and just getting to perform kind of regularly with my friends as well, doing some great, beautiful scenes that we had been working so hard on.
Absolutely. And Ashley?
So mine is also from On the Horizon. It was when we were recording Rachel's piece, Legacy, and I had to, like, they were working camera work, so I was sitting down at the piano, and Will yells at me. He's like, "Can you make yourself taller?" And I'm 5'2". I can't make myself taller. So everyone's like, "Will," he's like, "I don't have time to be nice, guys." And that was very, like, a very funny moment for me, because I'm used to the short jokes.
I love that you just remember that single instance. That is so fun. And that particular recording was like a 5-hour recording. So you guys were getting stuff done. So good work there. Rachel?
Yeah, no, the joke was because I'm 5'8". So the very much so different heights with sitting at the piano bench to make sure that my head wasn't going to show during some of the shots was hysterical. Yeah, my favorite has to be that 5-hour rehearsal, recording Legacy. Since it's a musical, it took so long. And I know everybody part of the process was just like, this, we want it to be perfect. So watching the actors and dancers give it their everything every single time we ran it, and having Will and everybody on the tech side, Zoe and like TJ, everybody giving that input to make sure that all the camera shots were like it, and that all the dances looked really crisp, and just everybody's love for something like that. I find student produced work to be so rewarding, because every student a part of it, like even to our choreographer Elise, like everybody wanted it to be perfect. And so coming out with that was amazing, and to see it again was just an absolute treat and a blessing. So yeah, I was definitely just that whole process, but mainly that 5-hour chunk when everybody was exhausted, but they kept going anyway.
Yes, there's been a lot of talk about On the Horizon, which those of you watching will hopefully get to see soon. So hopefully you can understand what we're talking about a little bit. But yeah, thank you for sharing, Rachel, and thank you all of you for being here today and sharing your experiences and your pandemic wisdom and really what you've taken out of the department this year, because we love hearing what students have to say and how their experiences have been over this last year.
Also, a huge thank you to everyone watching through the streaming service on YouTube. This was an awesome opportunity, and I know all of these amazing artists here love speaking about the amazing work that they've been doing over the last year, and the gratitude is definitely there for anybody who has gotten to watch any of these shows. That being said, this will be concluding the panel for us. Thank you for watching. Thank you, all of you amazing artists, for participating in this panel. Thank you, Abigail, for working with me on this.
And thank you, Roger.
And we hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day. Make sure to watch the shows that are streaming as well. Anything else, Abigail?
No, yeah, I guess I'll just piggyback and say thank you again, because without you panelists, without you viewers, without all of your support, this really wouldn't be possible. So thank you for always pushing us to do what we do and what we love and what we hope to grow with. So thank you, and we hope you enjoy the rest of today and also the rest of this Ignite Innovation Week, because it's truly special. All right. Thank you.